Hey everybody, this is Zach Nasser as the holistic homemaker here, and I'm here to tell you about your healthy hormone diet. Okay, this is something I've been working on for a while because I myself struggle a lot with weight loss and hormone imbalance. I had a lot of trouble losing weight because I would do a diet and my body would burn the fat, and then there would be estrogen released from the fat from pesticides and plastics and all kinds of things in our environment, and then that would get into my bloodstream and tell my body, hey, put the fat back on. So has anybody else felt that same kind of thing where you lose some weight, gain some weight, lose some weight, gain some weight? That's one of the exact things that we're going to talk about in this presentation tonight. This is something I've been working on for a long time. I lost over 100 pounds, and for a long time, through trial and error, kind of figured these things out, and now have compiled all the studies of why these things work and how to troubleshoot these things no matter what your hormone imbalances are. Whether it has to do with your adrenal glands or your thyroid or your sex hormones. For most people, we're estrogen dominant. Most people in the United States, because we eat out of plastic and drink out of plastic, we have pesticides on our food that are xenoestrogens. They're foreign compounds that mimic estrogen in our bodies. We have hormones in our meat and chickens, which then gets into eggs and milk. We also have pesticides on our crops that function like xenoestrogens, and as well as a lot of the preservatives like parabens in our cosmetic products are hormone disruptors, and the phthalates, which are plasticizers found in things like sunscreens and lotions and stuff. It gives it that smooth, buttery feeling. Those phthalates are xenoestrogens. When you put it on your skin, it gets into your bloodstream. Estrogen tells you, put on fat. Some other symptoms of estrogen dominance, which statistics range between 70 to 85% of people are probably estrogen dominant because of the problems that I just mentioned, along with some other ones which we'll get into. Almost everybody is estrogen dominant because of these, toxins and poisons in our food and environment. So there's a lifestyle kind of shift that comes along with this, but for right now, we're just going to talk about the diet because it's what you're putting into your body first and foremost is going to have the biggest effect on your body, and then we'll focus on later on what we put on our body and then what we keep around our body, things like air fresheners and stuff that we smell and breathe all the time. We'll get to that later. First, we're going to focus on what we put into our bodies. And so this is kind of a test run of some of this stuff. It's like a preview. So I have an ebook that's coming out soon, as well as some handouts that are going to be coming out before the ebook. The ebook's going to be a lot more detailed, but this is just kind of a sample. What to expect and why I hand chose all of these ingredients, because it's simpler to just have a positive list of, hey, only eat these things, than it is for most people to worry about what not to eat. And here's an example of that. There's a process in our body called aromatization. It's an enzymatic process where basically our androgens, like testosterone, flip into estrogens, like estradiol. So what does that mean? I am here to decode a lot of the Greek and medical mumbo jumbo, just kind of bottom line a lot of this stuff for you, so you know why you're consuming these things and what you're doing and what the science is behind it. So aromatization, testosterone flipping into estradiol. So when we have more testosterone, and men and women have testosterone, women just have less. When we have more testosterone, we're building lean muscle, we're burning fat easily, we have confidence, we have healthy libido, we have a lot of motivation and energy. And when we're estrogen dominant, we have low energy, we're lethargic. Sometimes we're tired but wired at night. Sometimes we get headaches, cluster headaches, and migraines because we're very sensitive to our environment. And some other issues that can come up are skin issues, as well as even in extreme cases of estrogen dominance, which can happen after using progesterone birth control. I won't get into why that is now, but it can basically, progesterone birth control can flip you into estrogen dominance when you stop taking the birth control. And so in extreme cases like that, even very aggressive cancers can result. So this is something that's very important for everyone to kind of realize. So I'm going to keep this as short as possible and as simple as possible. So now that I have your attention, let's move on to what the basic kind of structure is. So this little thing right here is, the first thing is I call the power drink. Okay, so you can choose between cafe latte, a matcha latte, golden milk, or other delicious drink. Like I have other hot cocoa, Mayan hot cocoa recipes and stuff that'll be coming out soon. So I'll have an e-cookbook as well as an e-book about the specific data on all these nutrients, but right now I'm just going to keep this as short and sweet as possible. But so we have easy to absorb protein in the form of some kind of powder, preferably a non-inflammatory protein, we'll get into that, anti-inflammatory fats, and healthy fiber, so you feel full and energized throughout the day. Okay, now a hearty meal, haha, punny there. Pick a healthy hormone protein. The best are fatty fish and eggs, but I'll get into some other ones that are good picks as well. A cruciferous veggie like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, something like that. A cooked one preferably. And I like to do some cooked and some raw. You know, a lot of people are hearing about goitrogen, which slows the thyroid. When you cook the cruciferous veggies, it breaks that down. The raw, not so much. Now, most people don't have to worry about the slow thyroid kind of issue because you have to eat a lot of goitrogen. I mean, like, you have to be eating cups of raw broccoli on the daily to really have a significant impact on your thyroid, but I still like to do partly cooked and partly raw. So then we have a healthy salad with lots of healthy fats, avocado, olives, and other kinds of healthy fats, so you feel full all day long. You're going to feel full, and I got a ton of delicious recipes for you. I'm just going to go through some real simple samples of what your meal plans would look like so you can get started as quickly as possible. So then your fruit smoothie, pick a berry. Any kind of berry will do, blueberry, blackberry, raspberry. Pick a citrus fruit. Lemon and lime are the best, especially if you're going to do a ketogenic weight loss program with this. And that's what I recommend, at least starting out with a ketogenic weight loss program. It's not a fad diet. It's high fat, moderate protein, low carb. Ketogenic diets have been around since the 1920s. It has beneficial effects on epilepsy, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and a lot of different diseases, and it's amazing for weight loss and insulin resistance and all those things that kind of come along with metabolic syndrome. So it's not a fad diet. So then add in your fiber and probiotics so you can cleanse all night and get your beauty nutrients. So I'm going to get into why these things and why I do that, and I'm going to stick with kind of a bare bones simple version, and then as time goes on I'll add the upgrades that you can do, where you can upgrade with supplements or different different kinds of supplements and things like that. So I'm going to use a tool called Chronometer, Chronometer, Chronometer. And so I can't show you it live, sadly, on this presentation, but so I'm going to go through this list of nutrients and why these food groups and these foods in this way are so beneficial and how you can get started today. So the first part is that power drink. What I like to put in the power drink is, and this will vary from person to person, so let me show you one thing here. So for me, I'm approximately 165 pounds. They're estimating that my body fat's around 14.3% because I'm about 6'1", 165 pounds, which is probably pretty accurate. About 14.3%, yeah, body fat. So my basal metabolic rate, just with general activity, I'm going to burn about 2,100 calories in a day. And now in a ketogenic diet, about 60 to 80% of my calories are going to be coming from fat. And 10 to 20% of my calories will be coming from carbs, 10 to 20% will be coming from protein. So my targets, approximately for someone my age, about 27, 6'1", 165 pounds, approximately 14.3% body fat. If I want to lose weight, then I want to be on a little bit lower. This diet that I'm going to show you above is 2,100 or 2,014 calories, so I would burn a little extra. But for me, my targets are going to be about 190 grams of fat. I hit 170 here. About 40 grams of carbs or less, which is a pretty strict ketogenic diet where you're burning fat instead of burning carbs. And then my protein is about 64 grams per day. And so the way that I structure this diet is so that you can crank up the protein if you need to, crank it down. You can crank up the carbs if you need to, or crank it down, and you can crank up the fat if you need to. But if you're looking at this for weight loss, and a lot of people have been begging me for this, is why I'm making this preview right now, so that people can just get a taste of it and kind of get started today. You'll notice this is why it's not just your average ketogenic diet. It's actually pretty similar to the Mediterranean diet, in that you have a great omega-3, omega-6 ratio. Your zinc-copper balance is good, and I'll show you 2 days worth of meal plans and how you can kind of change those things up, and why this combination of foods is so great. But as time goes on, I'm going to release a lot more recipes. So good potassium-sodium balance, good calcium-magnesium balance, because those two work together to build your bones and to help with neuron function and muscle function. So it's important to have all these things together. So when I talk about a diet, I'm not just talking about a temporary lifestyle change. What I mean by a diet is a collection of foods that you can eat to hit, almost all of your nutrient requirements for the day. Because as you'll see, I'm hitting 91% of all my nutrient targets, and I'll get into what I do to get the rest. Some people don't want to supplement. I'm going to go back to our list of foods. Some people don't want to supplement, and that's fine, but you kind of have to eat like this if you want to not have to supplement, because if you don't really eat like this, then you're going to get deficiencies eventually, and that's going to lead to disease. But I'm also going to get into why this is specifically amazing for your hormones. So this power drink is a matcha tea. Matcha tea is a shade-dried green tea. It's really high in antioxidants, but it prevents your good hormones from flipping into bad hormones. So basically it prevents testosterone from flipping into estradiol, which is the most active estrogen, which is really great. It's really important because you can do all this stuff to raise your testosterone, but then if it flips into estrogen, you just start gaining weight, then it's not really great. So there's other drinks we'll get into that you can do for this. For me, because my targets for fat is so high, about 190 grams, I do 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, 2 tablespoons of grass-fed butter, okay, and the coconut oil I prefer is unrefined because it's more nutritionally dense when it's unrefined. Refined coconut oil is better for cooking, okay. So then hemp seeds, 2 tablespoons, and chia seeds, 2 tablespoons. So why all of these ingredients? Hemp seeds and chia seeds have a lot of great fiber. They also have very high in omega-3s that are anti-inflammatory. They help with cardiovascular health. The vegetarian omega-3s help with cardiovascular health. Brain health comes from the from the salmon. We'll get to that later. But the hemp seeds also have an omega-6 in them called GLA, gamma-linoleic acid, and that regulates estrogen metabolism. The other thing is you're getting a lot of fats you're getting a lot of protein from the hemp and chia, and protein from the hemp protein in here. You could also use sprouted brown rice protein. I also like bone broth protein or collagen protein. It depends on if you're vegetarian or vegan. You could maybe do this as a vegetarian. Don't really think you could do this as a vegan, just period, for the nutrient targets that we're looking for. But maybe, I don't know, we could explore that later. I haven't really explored it so far. The butter, I'm just going to target why there's some good things in here. Butter has CLA oil, conjugated linoleic acid. It's amazing for weight loss, for fighting cancer, and for its antimicrobial and antifungal. Coconut oil has MCT oil in it, medium chain triglycerides, that basically do the same thing. And in clinical studies, when you feed people these fats, yes, a lot of saturated fat, you feed them these, they start to lose weight. Okay? They gave people 3 tablespoons of coconut oil a day, one before every meal, and they started to lose weight. They ate less calories because they were full, and they burned more calories when they looked at their metabolic rate. So we've been steered away from saturated fat for fear of heart disease, and we've cut out a lot of saturated fat and cholesterol from our diet, but heart disease has only gone up. A lot of that comes from fructose and alcohol and excess sugar, causing a lot of excess energy storage as adipose tissue. We're all realizing now that in the scientific community that it's insulin is connected to weight gain, which is why ketogenic is so effective at burning the calories and losing weight. So yeah, the hemp protein, I just put 2 tablespoons in there. And there's a reason why I like to do this. If you need more protein, you could do more protein in this shake to start with. Like, let's say you're working out and you want to increase muscle, and this is a common misconception. You can burn fat and build muscle at the same time. It has to do with the amount of protein that you're taking in, because you can be at a calorie deficit by, having lower fat and carbs, and then have extra protein, which is going to raise your nitrogen balance, okay? And that's going to help you build muscle. So you can build muscle and burn fat at the same time. Now, other things that help your nitrogen balance is good night's sleep, letting your muscles recover. So there's other things than just the protein. I don't recommend working out every day for marathon workouts, okay? So now our second meal, our hearty meal, half of it's going to be salad, but first we'll just get into a real simple recipe. 4 ounces of Atlantic salmon. It's really all you need is about 4 ounces of meat in a day. Maybe 6 ounces if you're a huge bodybuilder, but I recommend doing powdered proteins that are easy to absorb, like hemp protein, collagen protein, that kind of thing. And it also helps, one, with cost of this diet. It also helps with, so you can eat very healthy in a very affordable way, but you can also, have a little protein in the morning, and in our smoothie at the end of the night, which I'll get into, you could even add a little more protein in there if you wanted to. The other thing is you can up or decrease these fats. Like, let's say you're a woman who's smaller, you're not 6'1", and 165 pounds. You can cut the hemp seeds and chia seeds in half, but especially since our main source of calories is going to be from butter, coconut oil, and as you'll see, ghee, which is clarified butter, and MCT, which is fractionated coconut oil. Because our calories are coming mainly from those fats, you can cut those fats in half if you want to. And I recommend when you're just starting out to slowly up the amount of fat that you're having as you lower your carbs. The reason for that is because it can take a little bit for your body to adjust to it. And make sure to drink plenty of water and to get electrolytes in the form of good salts like real salt here, or Himalayan salt's great. Sea salt is good too, like Celtic sea salt. This is just a 1/4 teaspoon, because I'm also going to eat some raw sauerkraut and pitted Kalamata olives, which have sodium. So basically what I like to do is I'll take this salt and my ghee butter, the clarified butter, because it's great for heating up, and I'll bake my wild salmon and bake Brussels sprouts, kind of roast some Brussels sprouts. And you could even do 2 fillets if you want, or do 4 ounces of salmon. You could do 8 ounces and make 2 fillets, save one for tomorrow for a salad, and roast a whole cup of Brussels sprouts. That way you have 2 days worth of food. You just bake one thing. It's also great to squeeze some lemon juice on this if you're into that. I also love to do like garlic and onions with this kind of thing. It's up to you. This is just kind of a raw skeleton of a diet where you're actually getting all of the nutrients that you need in a good quantity. So then the salad part of it, I do a 1/2 cup raw baby spinach, because the spinach has this thing called TMG in it. It's also called betaine anhydrous, but it pulls the bad hormones, the xenoestrogens, out of the liver. Okay? And without getting too sciencey, it pulls that junk out. The baby kale has a type of fiber in it called CDG that pulls it out of the digestive tract. Okay, it's called P450 cytochrome method of liver detoxification, but I'm not going to bore you with science. Spinach is step 1, which is take the garbage out to the curb. Baby kale is step 2, which is take the trash away. The garbage men come and pick up your trash, okay? So this is just a 1-2 punch to make sure that you don't reabsorb it, okay? So some other things that have that, beets have betaine or TMG, which pulls the junk out of the liver, and the blueberries have that CDG fiber that pulls it out of the digestive tract. So there's a reason that I've chosen every single one of these ingredients, even the lemons. When you take the lemon peel, okay, or lime peel, it pulls the junk out of your intestinal tract. It pulls those bad hormones out. Okay, so every single ingredient here has a purpose. So we have our 4 ounces salmon, 1/2 cup Brussels sprouts in our salad, raw spinach, raw baby kale. I like to do a little broccoli slaw because you're getting a little bit of raw cruciferous vegetables, some broccoli, some cabbage, some carrots. Carrots do have some carbs, but the beta carotene is anti-estrogenic. And then, like the baby kale, the broccoli and the cabbage have a similar effect on hormones. Not only is it that good fiber that pulls out the junk, but it prevents your good hormones from flipping into bad hormones. Okay? Those nutrients are called I3C and DIM, but I'm not going to get too much into it. Basically, what they do is it's another 1-2 punch. This is why we do Brussels sprouts too. It's another cruciferous vegetable that has this secondary 1-2 punch of I3C, blocks the receptors of estradiol. That's the very active form of estrogen. So it prevents the excess estrogen from hitting the cells and activating those cells in that way. It also has DIM, which I3C turns into DIM, and that DIM, what it does is it stops your testosterone from flipping into estrogen. Okay, so this is a safe way to modulate your testosterone and estrogen without taking bioidentical hormones that are going to cripple you in the long run. If you take a bioidentical hormone like testosterone for 5 years, you will no longer be able to produce your own testosterone, and you will be addicted for the rest of your life. It'll keep you young, yeah, but you will have to take testosterone for the rest of your life. So use that as a last resort. Okay, a last resort is bioidentical hormones. So the nori sheet here is optional. That's the stuff they wrap sushi in. If you have low thyroid, definitely look into getting some dulse or kelp, or even kelp concentrate, for a food source of iodine, because all of your thyroid hormones are made with iodine, like T5 and T7. The number is how many iodine molecules are in that thyroid hormone. So if you are hypothyroid, you have a lack of thyroid, I highly recommend doing some kind of sea vegetable that has iodine in it, because iodized salt is a very poor source. As soon as you open the bag of iodized salt or the container, the iodine evaporates out of it. If you put, Lugol's iodine is the stuff they put on you in hospitals that makes you turn yellowy orange. That stuff will either soak into your skin or it'll evaporate. Okay, and the same thing happens in the salt. It's not a good source of iodine. So yeah, I like to do a little bit of olive oil, a high quality olive oil, preferably organic, for my dressing, Bragg's apple cider vinegar for the other part of my dressing. Now I'll have some great recipes coming out soon, but I do that and a little bit of the sea salt. Why? Olive oil and olives, as well as avocados, have a compound in them called oleuropein. Oleuropein boosts immune system function, and it prevents aromatization. Okay, so what's aromatization? That's your good hormones flipping into bad hormones. Okay, it's your testosterone flipping into estradiol. Now we all need a little bit of estrogen. Okay, and even men, just like men and women both have testosterone, men and women both need estrogen. So I'm not demonizing estrogen. There are 2 times in a woman's life where you need to be estrogen dominant, and that's if you're pregnant or if you're in puberty, because it causes rapid cell growth. And now this could be a problem though if that rapid cell growth is, say, cancer, and you're not pregnant or in, puberty. So most of the time you want to prevent aromatization at all costs. But so avocado, olives, and olive oil have that oleuropein compound that stops aromatization. Now the reason I like Bragg's raw apple cider vinegar, any organic raw apple cider vinegar will do, is that it's a raw probiotic supplement. And what do they eat? Apple cider. It's a microbe that eats sugar. So these microbes are going to eat sugar in your body, and they're going to outcompete yeast, mold, and fungus. That's going to cause problems. It's going to cause excess stress, and stress, elevated cortisol, that is, the stress hormone, elevated stress over a long period of time will drain your hormones. Okay? As your stress hormones go up, your thyroid and sex hormones go down. That's why you lose your libido and you get depressed and you gain weight, because thyroid regulates metabolism, and your sex hormones regulate how much fat you store and how much muscle you build. Okay, so stress is a big part of this. That's another reason why I really love the salmon, because you get the omega-3s, the EPA, DHA omega-3s, that helps build your brain, but it also buffers you from stress. Okay, so it's been clinically proven that EPA and DHA lowers cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. Complete proteins that have isoleucine and leucine, which are branched chain amino acids, those lower cortisol levels. That's why I pick only complete proteins like hemp protein, collagen protein, sprouted or brown rice protein. So the next day is gonna be a lot simpler, because now you kind of get the overall flow of what I'm talking about and why every single one of these ingredients is crucial. But also, if you don't like olives, then do more avocado. And if you don't like, avocado, then do more of the olives, or do olive oil, to get these compounds. And let's say you don't like any of those, well, at least your cruciferous vegetables are going to regulate estrogen metabolism. So if you don't like cruciferous vegetables, that's tough. You're going to have to get used to it. They're some of the healthiest foods around. Make cauliflower, quote unquote, mashed potatoes. Find something that works for you that is a cruciferous vegetable. So Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, all of these are cruciferous vegetables. You have to find something that you like in there. I like to do raw sauerkraut as well, because we have another thing full of probiotics, and these probiotics, what do they eat? Sauerkraut is cabbage. So these microbes, we're having some cooked, some raw, and preferably some fermented. Raw kimchi is great too, because some people get a little gassy when they eat a lot of broccoli and that kind of thing. So we want those microbes in our body that eat that stuff to help us digest it, and it gets way easier as time goes on. I promise you, you will not have those problems anymore when you start getting raw apple cider vinegar, raw sauerkraut and kimchi, and these things that you want to, these microbes that will help you eat those foods and digest that nutrition. So so that's the salad. I like to put some sauerkraut, some olives, some avocado, on top of my baby spinach and baby kale, and a little bit of broccoli slaw. That one's kind of optional. The nori sheet is also optional, but like I said, if you have issues with thyroid, definitely look into some dulse or kelp is the best one. And then olive oil and Bragg's apple cider vinegar is what I like to use to top it off. And this is just a real simple thing. Like I said, I'll have more recipes coming out soon. So our nighttime shake, this is another place that you can add in more fats if you need to. MCT oil is a fractionated coconut oil. So you can add in more fats here in the olive oil section, or add in more avocado. You can add in more Kalamata olives. They're very high fat. Or, you can add in MCT oil. So there's all these opportunities where you can add fat or subtract fat. Like, let's say you're small and this is plenty of fat, doing a tablespoon of each of these is plenty of fat, then you don't need to do this extra fat. For me, I did because I'm a little bigger. So half a cup of blueberries. Again, blueberries have that fiber that pulls out the bad hormones. That's phase 2. It pulls it out of the digestive tract. So what's phase 1? That's our beets. Beets pull it out of the liver. Berries carry it out of the body. And then the lemon juice, it's great for vitamin C, but if you do a little bit of the lemon zest as well, it's another thing that can kind of pull out it can pull out the hormones that are in the digestive tract. So it's another phase 2 cleanser. The only other one that you can do the peel on a consistent basis is lime. So we'll get into that next day's kind of thing. And so I just picked all these ingredients like I told you because it fit a ketogenic diet and because they're all amazing for hormones. And then what I realized, serendipitously, I realized that we had 91% of all target nutrients, particularly high fiber, which is great for your probiotics and digestion. We have high iron, both heme and non-heme iron, which means plant-based and animal-based iron, because they're different the way they absorb. Calcium is a little low because I don't do milk and dairy. Milk and dairy, except for the butter, I do the butter, but milk and dairy causes aromatization, causes those good hormones to flip into the not so good hormones. I take moringa leaf to get my calcium because it has 17 times more calcium than milk. It also has a lot of B vitamins. It also has vitamin E, and so even a little bit of vitamin D in there, and some B vitamins. So there's a few nutrients that I miss that I take moringa to compensate for. We also have high vitamin A. Okay, this is an anti-inflammatory. It makes your skin look beautiful. It's funny. All these beauty nutrients also help balance your hormones. We use fat-soluble vitamin A, which is pro-testosterone, and water-soluble A, like beta-carotene in carrots, which is anti-estrogenic. Okay, vitamin C is a powerful antioxidant. It's also important for collagen synthesis. So again, it makes you beautiful. It also helps with your circulation because collagen not only makes your skin look pretty, it helps your blood vessels stay pliable. So high B12, which is really important and great, this comes from the salmon mainly. You'll realize after playing around with something like Chronometer that B12 is hard to find. 96% of our folate, almost totally full. That's a lot of that comes from the avocado, but there's other nutrients that it comes from. And I'm not really worried about these deficiencies because you'll see that on day 2 we'll get more of some of these nutrients that we're a little bit low on, like zinc. So we got pretty much all the B vitamins. Very few people have deficiencies in B1 and B2. Folate almost totally full on there. 359% of our vitamin A, the fat soluble and water soluble. High vitamin C, pretty good amount of vitamin D. If you're really worried about vitamin D and you're not taking a supplement, maitake mushrooms, which you can find in some grocery stores, you can get them dry or wet, are very high in vitamin D. Like a half a cup is like 90% of your day's vitamin D. Vitamin E, you can get more of it from olives, from olive oil, and from avocado. But that's where we get a lot of this vitamin E. And so if you don't want to supplement, you kind of have to eat these foods that I'm talking about. K, vitamin K. It's 552%. A lot of that is K1 from vegetables. Some of it is K2, but that's also why I recommend like a fermented kind of thing like sauerkraut or kimchi, because a lot of those microbes is where we get the K2. K2 is what activates vitamin D, and it's what keeps calcium in your bones. So that's an important one. So yeah, high fiber, which is really great for building up those probiotics, really great for weight loss, and we're seeing that that's 70% of our immune system now is our probiotics. So very high fat, mostly monounsaturated fat and saturated fat, which are really amazing for hormones. But again, I don't want to go too long. Cholesterol is also amazing for hormones. We've not been told this. It's great for your brain and your hormones. It's the precursor to all of these hormones. So high omega-3, which is anti-inflammatory, and pretty low omega-6. You do need some omega-6, but not a lot. Most people get way too much vegetable oil and canola oil, and way too much of the omega-6, the canola oil and vegetable oil, and way too little of things like chia seeds, hemp seeds, salmon, and eggs, and other cold water fish. So yeah, you can see almost totally full on the protein here. If I wanted to, I could have added a little bit extra into one of those protein shakes, or I could have added a little collagen protein in my nightshake. So you can adjust this for however you want, and it's crazy because it doesn't really change the minerals, it doesn't really change the protein levels, I mean, unless you want to, but you can get the vitamins that you need with a minimal amount of food. So yeah, you get all the essential and a lot of the non-essential amino acids as well. And so for extra potassium and the zinc, so for extra potassium I take moringa leaf as well, because it has 17 times the potassium of bananas, 15 times the calcium of milk. So that's how I close up these gaps in here, is with moringa leaf, and you can put that in your green tea latte in the morning. And then the zinc you don't really have to worry about, because tomorrow we're going to get more zinc with eggs. So again, this is exactly the same, except that I switched turmeric for green tea, so this would be a golden milk, and I use the hemp protein again. I do 3 tablespoons instead of 2 tablespoons, and then instead of salmon, the ghee, butter, and salt is still there. Instead of salmon, I do eggs. Now for me, I do 4 eggs. You might not need to do 4 extra large eggs. You might do 2. You might be small. Feel it out with that one. And then a half a cup of broccoli. It's not super high in calories, but it is super high in nutrients, so I'd recommend, no matter what size you are, half a cup of broccoli. A tablespoon of olive oil in my Bragg's apple cider vinegar. That's just my dressing. I explained why. The Kalamata olives stay the same. You can change up whatever kind of olives you want. I just like them because they're high fat and the oleoropine. Avocado, you might do a half. I do a whole one. A little bit of broccoli, saw my baby spinach and baby kale. It's the same salad. And I'm gonna, like I said, I'll have more recipes coming out soon of all kinds of different crazy things that you can do. So then I change up the smoothie at night as well. Excuse me. I do raspberries. This is a 1/4 cup of raspberries, and then the juice of 1 lime. And then the beet raw is just 1 2-inch diameter beet. The reason I do that is, 1, it looks really pretty, but 2, when you cook the beets, you break down the TMG, and the TMG is the stuff that pulls the bad hormones out of the liver. Another way you can avoid this is you can do juiced beets, and you can also pickle beets, in like half apple cider vinegar, half water with some salt and whatever spices you want. You can pickle beets. Yeah, because the microbes in the apple cider vinegar are going to eat the sugar in the beets. So it's basically the same kind of thing, but you can switch it up if you want. For these drinks, if you want to do a little sweetener, monk fruit extract or xylitol or stevia extract are all great. But again, we're doing a low carb with this plan. So this is a weight loss plan. If you don't need to lose weight and you don't want to do low carb, then what you can start doing is You can add in some sweet potatoes. You can add in some butternut squash. So like for example, you could cook your Brussels sprouts or broccoli with butternut squash cubes or sweet potato cubes, or other roast vegetables if you wanted to, and start adding in some more carbs and that kind of thing. But you want to do hormone healthy carbs, because beans, grains, and legumes cause aromatization, which is the flipping of good hormones into bad hormones. Okay, and I know that's a gross oversimplification, but I want to keep this simple. So you want to minimize that. Even with seeds and nuts, you want to minimize the amount of seeds. I do a little bit of hemp and chia because it offsets, it kind of balances out our cholesterol levels and helps with inflammation and circulation. And then the hemp seeds help regulate estrogen metabolism. So they're all better if all of those things that I mentioned, seeds, nuts, legumes, beans, grains. With seeds and nuts, it's better if you soak them between 6 to 24 hours, depends on what you're soaking. Soaking them breaks down the phytic acid, and that's one of the things that causes them to aromatize. With grains and beans and legumes, you sprout them to where they start growing, and it reduces the carbs, ups the nutrients. With grains, you have to sprout them and then ferment them, which is where you get sprouted bread. So those are ways to minimize that phytic acid load that is going to eventually throw off your hormones. And you can see why so many people eat refined flour, grains, beans, sugars, all these things that are going to cause aromatization. It's no wonder that we have this epidemic of hormone imbalance. But yeah, this is just a real basic kind of idea of a meal plan. And like I said, you can up the amount of fat at different times of the day if you need to, or alter the amount of protein that you need at different times of the day. And you can sign up for Chronometer for free. You can even log in with Facebook. You don't even have to give them your email stuff. It's just quick and easy. So if you want to, you can just kind of play around with this and see what quantities of things you'll need, and where you may be missing stuff. That's optional, but like I said, you really just want to have a general idea of about 60% of the calories that you need, to 60 to 80% coming from fat, 10 to 20% from protein, 10 to 20% from carbs. So again, with the eggs, we're at a slight calorie surplus. So if you're really skinny, you can still gain weight, you just want to consume more fats in the process. So I'm at a slight calorie surplus, 2,130, 2,142. It's not that big a deal. I mean, because this is just general activity, which is like, walking around, going to the store, doing that kind of thing. If you do any amount of walking, like if you do an extra amount of walking or an extra amount of working out, this is not a big deal. This is 12 calories over. You're going to burn it, You might burn 12 calories sneezing. I don't know. But my protein level's good, 63.5 out of 64. 33 grams. I'm keeping it pretty low carb, even though I had a beet and lime and, some fruit, some berries. I'm still pretty low carb. 33 grams is pretty low. 185 almost grams of fat. But so again, this is like about 80% of my food is coming from fat and about 10% from carbs and protein. From calories, that is. So again, good omega-3, omega-6 balance, good zinc-copper balance. A little bit better in the zinc because eggs have more zinc. And also the hemp protein has a lot of zinc. And I did extra protein because the eggs have a little bit more fat and a little less protein than the salmon. So again, these are ways that you can tweak this for yourself. Good potassium-sodium balance, good potassium-magnesium balance. And so I'm hitting 89% of my targets, almost 90%. And so, if you're really scared about that D, maitake is great, portobello and white, just button mushrooms that regular mushrooms that you find at the store, put on your pizza. They have some D as well. You can also do a supplement of like 2,000 IUs of cholecalciferol a day if you want to. But that's the thing, is if you don't want to have to do any supplements, you kind of have to eat this healthy. So B1 and B3, again, last time it was B2 that we were missing. Now we have a little bit more B2. But like, let's say you don't do salmon or eggs. Let's say you do like chicken or turkey or duck. You're going to get a lot of niacin and B1. And so again, I'm not saying that this is the only thing you can eat. Having chicken or turkey once or twice a week is great. Having fatty fish like salmon, tuna, or sardines once or twice a week are great. Just make sure they're wild caught and your meat is farm raised. Having eggs for your protein, even having a mushroom day. If you want to have a vegetarian day, you're going to be a little bit lower on protein unless you up your protein in your drinks, but that's totally fine. Yeah, so again, you'll see that the saturated fat is super high, but I want that, and that's why I recommend a ketogenic diet, because saturated fat is not only the basis of your brain, it's the basis of all your hormones. Again, a little bit of omega-6, very high omega-3s, which is what we want, high monounsaturated fat, because it's way better for hormones to have high saturated fat, high monounsaturated fat, versus PUFAs, polyunsaturated fats. Polyunsaturated fats diets that are high in those vegetable oils and canola oil and that kind of thing is really damaging for the hormones. It's really damaging for a lot of things, but especially the hormones. And then you'll notice the trans fats here. These are from the butter, and even the chia seeds have a little bit, but this is not the trans fat that you need to worry about. The trans fat that you need to worry about are those rancid oils that I talked about, omega-6s and 3s, as well as hydrogenated oils, which is things like margarine, and I can't believe it's not butter. They also sneak hydrogenated oils into stuff like peanut butter. So these kinds are not the kinds you want to worry about. The other ones are. So yeah, again, high vitamin K, very high anti-inflammatory ones. And see, folate I was a little low yesterday. Today I got 110%. So this is what I mean by a diet, a food plan where you can really hit all of these bases, so to speak. So the next thing, 99% of my protein for the day, way over on all my essential amino acids. People just think of these as protein, but tyrosine is what creates dopamine. Tryptophan is what creates serotonin. These things make you feel good. Methionine makes you feel really good. Isoleucine and leucine is going to drop your stress levels. So we want to be good on all these things, but we also don't want to overdo the animal protein. You don't want it to decay in your intestines. That's called putrefaction. And you'd be surprised a lot of people have that as a major cause of dysbiosis or gut problems. So again, like I was saying, I have a little bit more potassium and calcium. I take moringa leaf for that to cover those nutrient gaps. It's also a good source of vitamin E, moringa. So I make sure I get all of these things in here. And then the zinc, 95% today. That's because I upped the amount of hemp protein, and 4 eggs have a lot of zinc in there. So that's what I mean by you don't really need to worry about some of these missing nutrients. I mean, the calcium and potassium is important, so moringa leaf, it's great. Look it up, moringa oleifera. But that's pretty much it. That's an idea of 2 days of this kind of diet and some ways that you can switch it up. Now, I have a lot of recipes coming out soon, like crazy chai tea stuff and Mayan mocha drinks. I'm burping because I ate some sauerkraut made. It was raw sauerkraut fermented with green apples in it. So those probiotics are working, But yeah, so a lot of this stuff though, like the zinc and the folate, we missed it one day and then we upped something on another day and covered that missing gap. So this really is kind of like, this was kind of serendipitous that it became this fully complete kind of diet thing. Because I just picked the ingredients for hormones, and then it turned into, wow, I'm getting almost every single nutrient that I need every single day. So this is a way to flood your body with lots of nutrients, all the ones it needs, and then overflow it with the anti-inflammatory, antioxidant ones. That's why it's not just like a straight up ketogenic diet, because they do a lot of high-fat dairy, like full-fat dairy, like cream and stuff like that. They do a lot of red meat. It's more like the Mediterranean diet, because excess red meat will throw off your estrogen balance. It will raise estrogen over time. That's why it contributes to prostate cancer. They found out saturated fat meat raises testosterone, but also contributed to prostate cancer, which is an estrogen hormonal cancer, when it was overdone. Now, coconut oil raised testosterone because it's saturated fat without that effect. So that's the thing, is we're not overdoing the protein. We're getting plenty of protein that we need without overdoing it, and really kind of taking a lot of the stress off of our body. And instead of just having water-soluble vitamin A and saying, hey, well, you can convert this, we give you the fat-soluble vitamin A so your body doesn't have to convert it, and the water-soluble, because now you just have extra antioxidants floating around. So you might start to notice a lot of things other than hormones changing, like getting rid of asthma, getting rid of brain fog, getting rid of gut inflammation. When I did a vegan diet, for 2 years, raw food for a long time as well, vegetarian for 5 years, but I was so sensitive to cheese, to bread, gluten and stuff. So like if I cheated and ate a cheese pizza, I was doubled over in pain. It was terrible. And with this, I have such a low inflammatory level that even if I do go kind of off the bandwagon for a day, I mean, I don't recommend that, because that refined flour, cheese, and red meat and all that stuff, it's going to cause hormone problems in the long run. So I mean, I don't recommend those foods, but if you fall off the bandwagon, one, it's not going to kill you, and two, if most of the time you're following a very healthy hormone balanced diet, you have a buffer of nutrients against the toxins. I mean, like, God forbid you eat a pizza where it's factory farmed meat, factory farmed cheese, GMO, gluten, covered in pesticide. God forbid you cheat with that. Maybe go for an organic pizza if you can. But even if you do go that way, you have this buffer of nutrients, antioxidants. Your body is functioning the way it's supposed to. Your body can actually process that kind of thing. Whereas the problem with veganism is mainly low EPA DHA omega-3s, which you can get it from algae if you're a vegan, and low B12, which you can get vegan methylcobalamin. Okay, so you could do it. It's just those things, if you're missing those nutrients, it's really going to open you up to stress, and you're going to feel like an exposed nerve. So with this diet, it's how do we saturate our body with all the nutrients it needs pretty much every day, and the ones that it can handle more of, a little, and then some. Go a little above and beyond with things like vitamin A and vitamin C, and even vitamin E. So that's going to wrap it up for this presentation. There's a lot more to come with the Healthy Hormone ebook, the Healthy Hormone cookbook, the Healthy Hormone lifestyle, and I'm even creating a custom workout plan for different levels of expertise, as a way to boost human growth hormone and testosterone while lowering cortisol. So there's a lot of stuff to come, and I have a lot of handouts already made.